are listening to the EPT Works Listen, Love, Give podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the Forgiveness Doctor. I'm here to help you create phenomenal health, happiness, and new life with energy, intuition, and forgiveness. EPT is short for Emotional Polarity Technique, an innovative, holistic emotional therapy that will change your life for good. You can subscribe to this podcast, get free EPT training at eptworks.com, and like us on Facebook. Hello, everyone. This podcast is Chapter 6, Let's Talk About Forgiveness. It's from my book, The Forgiveness Doctor, and you can find out how to buy that book or get the digital or the hard copy through Amazon by going to www.eptworks.com. All right. Here's Chapter 6 from The Forgiveness Doctor. Let's talk about forgiveness. Way back in 1989, I was transforming my chiropractic practice into a holistic healing practice. That included chiropractic care and nutritional advice. I had begun using muscle testing as a tool when consulting with patients. In 1991, when I took NET, Neuro-Emotional Technique, with Scott Walker, I was ready for more energy work training. I was greatly influenced by his work. By the end of 1994, I had developed a simplified emotional energy correction with magnets and breathing. I had also moved deeply into the realm of the power of forgiveness. My Christian background had taught me how forgiveness works in my soul salvation. However, I was learning how forgiveness is simply the immense power of Christ's love for all who honor it. No matter what your faith, you can see and feel the power of healing in Christ's love. It just is. Now, mind you, I am a Bible-believing, born-again Christian. I was raised in a conservative Christian family. My father and my brother are both ministers in the Church of Christ. For those of you who are Christian, you already know that muscle testing can be considered quite controversial in the Christian community. In my faith base, however, it wasn't the muscle testing that got attention. It was something else. I had put an ad in the local newspaper that said, "Miracles happen at Noblesville Holistic Healing Center." My minister and a few of the men at my church at the time got together, and one of them delivered a sermon on Sunday morning on the subject of the use of the word miracles and how miracles do not happen anymore. I was having way too much fun helping people heal from all kinds of problems to be offended by my church brother's pointed sermon. What surprised me was that as I began to do more speaking on the subject of healing and forgiveness, muscle testing and energy work were controversial in Christian communities, while the topic of forgiveness was controversial to non-religious groups of counselors and healers. I simply believe that when the outcome is healing, it is always a gift of God. The EPT 4-step formula is set up to support the process of forgiving. The body work and energy work of steps 1 through 3 act as a platform to open space for true forgiveness. In EPT, it is in the action of forgiveness where the most profound miracles take place. In this day and age, almost everyone has known or heard of someone who has healed from cancer. A real miracle takes place when you can help someone love a person they have hated, or to love a part of their own life they have hated. Coincidentally, that can also be their cure for cancer. It is only in forgiving that true healing takes place. Using the information found in hidden memories, an EPT practitioner will help you expand your ability to forgive in ways you never imagined. Forgiveness is the tool that will allow you to let go of beliefs that limit your full expression of love. Forgiveness aligns you with divine truth and greater freedom to create more of what you enjoy in your life. The truth really does set you free. In forgiving, We go beyond seeking a fair solution and instead look for a compassionate solution. The basic moral principle underlying justice is equality. The basic moral principle underlying forgiveness is love. There are three aspects of forgiveness. I forgive myself, I forgive others, I give others permission to forgive me. Most of our forgiving is in connection with that which we believe to be true. Our beliefs are founded on our perception of reality. Therefore, we forgive that which we believed to be true. Forgiveness is the most important part of the EPT four-step formula. Identifying and releasing the bad feelings first can serve to make true forgiveness take place much faster. With all the bad feelings out of the way, forgiveness opens the way for a transformation of your beliefs. Forgiveness helps you to let go of those beliefs that no longer serve you. You get to release old limiting beliefs like, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I can't do anything right, I don't deserve love. People who aren't perfect don't deserve love. When you forgive yourself for believing the lies you are building your life around, you open up to a life that is more abundant in every way. In 2001, even though I had been using forgiveness and healing for years, I was encouraged when I discovered the amount of research and information available on forgiveness. It has been a very well-funded topic for research in healing and human transformation. Prior to 1985, there were only 5 studies on forgiveness, a number that has increased by over 4,000%, up from just 58 published studies on forgiveness in 1997. There are now more than 1,200. Stanford, Yale, Duke, and Berkeley are just a few of the universities involved in forgiveness research. Much of the research has been funded by a Campaign for Forgiveness Research. Everett L. Worthington, Jr., Ph.D., is the executive director. Some research projects have included the following: the relationship between forgiveness and health, forgiveness involving biology and human evolution, models and theories of forgiveness, developing forgiveness, forgiving after trauma, grief, loss, or violence, forgiving after sexual, alcohol, or drug abuse, the role of forgiveness in divorce prevention, forgiveness, the key to long-term marriage. In 1999, Frederick Luskin, Ph.D., was published in Stanford Medicine. In his article, The Art and Science of Forgiveness, he writes, while research is still limited, a picture is emerging that forgiveness may be important not just as a religious practice, but as a component of a comprehensive vision of health. Executive Director for A Campaign for Forgiveness, Everett Worthington, Jr., Ph.D., states, forgiveness is both a decision and a real change in emotional experience. That change in emotion is related to better mental and physical health. In her article, Forgiveness, Spiritual and Medical Implications, published in the Yale Journal for Humanities and Medicine, Christiana Puchalski, MD, writes, there have been many studies looking at the role of forgiveness in health. Unforgiving persons have increased anxiety symptoms, increased paranoia, increased narcissism, increased frequency of psychosomatic complications, increased incidence of heart disease, and less resistance to physical illness. The act of forgiveness can result in less anxiety and depression, better health outcomes, increased coping with stress, and increased closeness to God and others. Robert Enright, a psychologist working at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, founded the International Forgiveness Institute. He has conducted significant research on the physical and emotional effects of forgiveness. One of the research projects looked into the survival rate of those who had experienced heart attacks. They found that the survival rate for those who considered and addressed their unresolved angers and anxieties and worked on forgiveness were 3 times higher than those who did not work on forgiveness. In another study in Baltimore, Maryland, 300 young men who were criminal offenders serving time volunteered to participate in a program to meet their victims face to face and ask forgiveness. The victims also had to volunteer willingly for the program. The offenders received no reductions in their sentences or any other incentives to participate in the program other than their desire to redeem their lives. Now here's the fascinating outcome. Of the 300 men who came forward seeking forgiveness and meeting their victims, only one was arrested a second time after his release. A 1990 study shows significant correlations between forgiveness and the following variables: lower levels of psychological depression, lower levels of anxiety, and higher levels of self-esteem. Research conducted through Virginia Commonwealth University, Richmond, found that when adults were asked to think about someone who wronged them, heart rate and blood pressure rose and mood worsened for those dwelling on the hurt, but not for those thinking forgiveness. Research suggests that forgiveness works by reducing the stress of the state of unforgiveness, a potent mixture of bitterness, anger, hostility, hatred, resentment, and fear. Fear of being humiliated again. These emotions have specific physiological consequences, such as increased blood pressure, hormonal changes linked to cardiovascular disease, immune suppression, and impaired neurological function and memory. Frequent or chronic unforgiveness, if not dealt with, will eventually put one at risk for health problems, states Everett Worthington. Suffice it to say, when you focus on forgiveness, you are bound to improve your health, happiness, and success. As practitioners learn to work with forgiveness, it becomes quite natural and easy. Since forgiveness is the art of EPT, this chapter is devoted to understanding forgiveness more deeply as it relates to your beliefs, so that you can become proficient with forgiveness in your own life. Once again, the 3 aspects of forgiveness are: I forgive myself, I forgive others, I give others permission to forgive me. Most of our forgiving is in connection to that which we believe to be true. Our beliefs are founded on our perception of reality. Therefore, we forgive that which we believed to be true. For example, a current belief might be, this pain is never going away. Forgiveness statements for this belief could be, I forgive myself for believing this pain is never going to heal. I forgive myself for believing it is all my fault. I forgive myself for causing this pain. I forgive the other person for causing this pain. I forgive myself for believing I can never forgive that other person for causing this pain. I forgive myself for giving power to other to ruin my life. I give myself permission to accept God will always have more power to restore my life than any other person will ever have to destroy my life. I give other permission to forgive me for blaming them for my pain, for hating them, for believing they are unforgivable, for holding on to the pain as a justification to continue to hate them. What you believe creates your experience of reality. When you feel limited in your reality, it is because you are holding limiting beliefs. You are focused on limitations that separate you from divine abundance of healing, love, and greater awareness. To come up with your targeted forgiveness statements, Your EPT practitioner will think about your uncovered memory and seek to answer the following question. If this happened to me, what would I believe is true? Here's an example. I felt lost and vulnerable, sadness and fear when my dad suddenly died in a car accident when I was 7. The practitioner asks herself, if this happened to me, what would I believe could be true? I may believe any of the following ideas after a trauma like that. 1. The world is a dangerous place. 2. I'm all alone. 3. I don't know what to do. 4. It was my fault. 5. I could die too. 6. I'll never be happy again. 7. God doesn't care about me. 8. I have to protect my mom. Possible limiting beliefs are put into a forgiveness statement for the client to repeat. There are things that can happen that are really hard in life. I'm talking about the over-the-top traumas that are devastating to the individual and to humanity itself. Things like witnessing a murder at the age of 4, rape, or having a family member brutally murdered. To talk about forgiveness in these traumas can seem heartless and uncaring. The pain is excruciating, and the thought of forgiving the offender seems impossible. Forgiveness is not just about freeing the offender. Forgiveness is about freeing the one who was offended. Richard Malika is an expert in helping people devastated by war crimes to heal and move on with their life. In his book, Healing Invisible Wounds, he explains the process of healing for these unspeakable traumas. First and foremost, the victim must be able to tell her story to a compassionate listener. By telling her story, the victim is allowing the listener to realize what a terrible, wrongful event has occurred. Then there can be a raised awareness in the community that this can happen and that it should be prevented in the future. By compassionately listening, the listener represents the community to say, I'm sorry this happened to you. It should not have happened. It was wrong. I won't let this happen again. Finally, the victim must be given total absolution as the listener helps the victim to forgive. I forgive myself for believing that it was my fault. I forgive myself for believing there was something I did that caused this trauma. I forgive myself for believing there was something I could have done to stop this trauma. Many people can get stuck in a trauma memory with their mind replaying the trauma as a way of figuring out what they could have done to avoid it. I forgive myself for holding on to a trauma that doesn't exist anymore. I forgive myself for believing this trauma has ruined my life and future. I forgive myself for giving up my power to love and forgive because of this trauma. Forgiveness provides a vehicle to transform your negative limiting beliefs, those not aligned with divine truth, into limitless beliefs, those aligned with divine truth. Concept. What does being in your power mean? When I am in my place of power, it is seen in the action I take. In my place of power, I don't take action out of fear of loss or need for money or value. My heart says, you know what you want and why you are here and what you must do. Now do it out of that love of who you are and why you are here. My actions that come from this place usually look crazy. I'm not taking action because I have enough money or talent or support already in place. I'm taking action out of pure faith in the power in me being there for me to scoop me up if I fail or things don't go as planned, or to lift me up higher than I ever thought possible, calling me again into greater faith-filled action. Action in my power does not depend on if there is enough money, if there is enough love, if there is enough forgiveness, or people, or relationships, or faith. Action in my power is born out of already knowing I have. It is already mine. No desperation or fear, only knowledge, peace, and awareness of already being in this new place and experience I am seeking to create. Want to know if you are in your power? Take a long, hard look at actions you know you want to take and you can't or don't because not enough money, not enough love, not enough support, not enough power. Taking action declares to God, I believe this is possible. My action moves the energy into the outcome aligned with the divine in myself and others. 5 tips for forgiveness. Forgiveness tip 1. Sometimes it is impossible to perceive that you are not so different from the person who wronged you. If you are angry or upset with someone, the first forgiveness should be, I forgive myself for every time I have treated someone the same way or done the same thing. I forgive myself for every time I caused pain or hurt in someone else, knowingly or unknowingly. Go ahead, be specific. For example, I forgive myself for the pain and hurt I have caused to my own children, which is like the pain my mom caused me. Forgiveness tip 2. Our behavior, good or bad, is always to justify our current belief system. Ask yourself, what would I have to believe to feel this way? For example, a person feels, no one loves me. I forgive myself for believing I'm unlovable. I forgive myself for choosing not to receive love. I forgive myself for believing no one loves me. I forgive myself for withholding love from others. I forgive myself for everything I ever said or did just to validate no one loves me. Forgiveness tip 3. Sometimes people can't believe they can really heal and move past certain events such as divorce, child abuse, unexpected death, rape, accidents, etc. When a person holds this belief, only forgiveness will move them past it. I forgive myself for believing there are some things that never heal. I forgive myself for believing I am permanently damaged. I forgive myself for believing letting go of this trauma will give someone permission to hurt me again. I forgive myself for holding on to a trauma that isn't even happening anymore. I forgive myself for believing I just can't forgive that person. Forgiveness tip 4. Codependency is when a person believes that his or her happiness or healing is dependent on someone or something else changing in their life. I forgive myself for believing other has to change before I can heal. I forgive myself for believing the past has to change before I can heal. I forgive myself for believing my job has to change before I can heal. I forgive myself for believing my husband or my family has to change before I can heal. Forgiveness tip 5. Sometimes it is difficult to forgive because you want to hold on to an unfulfilled expectation of how you wished it would be. In the movie, What Dreams May Come, hell is depicted as a place where you lose your mind. The lead character, played by Robin Williams, goes on a mission to retrieve his wife from hell. She is there, having lost her mind and committed suicide on earth because of the losses she could not accept. In hell, she is insane with grief. It is Robin's character's mission to bring her to her senses. He begins by reminding her of happy memories in their life. She refuses to listen. Finally, in desperation, he starts to bring up the difficult parts of their life, insinuating that even the hardest parts of life would be better than this insanity. With love in his eyes, he tells her, "Remember the fights we had? We had some really good fights." The point is, even the most difficult parts of your life have value to you. From the perspective of hell, losing your mind, you would choose the worst of your life experiences over losing your mind any day of the week. When you refuse to accept the sad, painful, or hard parts of your life and insist on hanging on to the way you wished it would be or thought it should be, you lose your presence of mind and thus continue existence in your own private hell. Forgiveness is a powerful tool in bringing about a true feeling of acceptance of the way it was and the way it is. Forgive yourself for holding on to the expectation that was never fulfilled. I forgive myself for holding on to a life that never existed. This would be the life I may have had if this pain, accident, trauma would have never occurred. I forgive myself for holding on to a relationship that never existed. The relationship that never existed is the perfect one that you imagined you would have or continue to have if this pain, accident, loss, or trauma had not occurred. Having that relationship or imagined life relies on you changing the past or changing another person, neither of which are in your control. I forgive myself for believing I can't accept this pain the way it is. I give myself permission to accept the loss of the way I imagined it would be. I give myself permission to accept it the way it is. Try to make it as specific as possible. I forgive myself for believing I can't accept my relationship with my father the way it is. I forgive myself for believing I can't accept my marriage the way it is. I forgive myself for believing I can't accept my divorce the way it is. I forgive myself for believing it has to be the way I imagined and expected it to be before I can accept it. Sum it all up with the following idea. Finally, you will give yourself permission to accept and love your life the way it is. I forgive myself for letting my expectation of something that never existed limit my freedom to accept my life the way it is now. I give myself permission to accept and love my life the way it is. I give myself permission to accept and love my relationship with my father the way it is. Permission and choice statements are often used after you have forgiven. They can be like icing on the cake. You have forgiven yourself for the emotions and limiting beliefs that have prevented you from basking in the experience of true love, joy, security, and peace that flows from God through you. Permission and choice statements are just an affirmation to yourself that you have access to love and the freedom to love and feel good about yourself, even when life appears imperfect. You are not alone. God has been with you in the good times and the bad times. Permission and choice statements reaffirm and remind you of this truth. Give yourself permission to feel good when a good thing happens. You may have given up this freedom when your mother abused you as a child. Now, when someone loves you, which is a good thing, you can only feel fear, anger, and betrayal. You identify those original emotions that came when you thought you were in a safe and loving situation. You fix it so that your body and energy system feel different and open to your conscious choice of how you would like to feel. You use this lens looking into your subconscious filing system to forgive those beliefs that are holding you back from creating and experiencing a life you love. Now you have greater freedom to consciously choose how you would like to feel. There are 3 types of statements your EPT practitioner will use. They begin like this. I give myself permission to feel. I choose to feel. Without this pattern, I am free to feel. I am free to do. I am free to be. Remember to breathe after each statement. For example, I feel anger and fear about my mom at age 3 because she beat me. This is the original word picture of the hidden memory. I give myself permission to feel loving, forgiving, and safe, loving my mother. Without this pattern, I am free to feel loving, forgiving, and safe, loving. I give myself permission to feel loving, forgiving, and safe when my mom loves me. Without this pattern, I am free to feel loving, forgiving, and safe when I am loved. I choose to feel loving, forgiving, and safe with my mother. I choose to feel loving, forgiving, and safe, loving. Without this pattern, I am free to choose to feel loving, forgiving, and safe when my mother loves me. Without this pattern, I am free to choose to feel loving, forgiving, and safe when I am loved. While doing forgiveness and affirmation statements, the practitioner will position herself beside you, sitting or standing. She will place her left hand over your kidney area on your back and her right hand over your upper chest, with her thumb and fingers placed just below the collarbones on either side. The EPT practitioner will hold or rub these points as she coaches you with forgiveness statements. You are expected to repeat out loud. A deep breath is taken after each statement. Sometimes forgiveness will cause you to cry. Sometimes you will not cry, only feel relief. Dr. Dean Ornish, America's all-purpose lifestyle guru, regards forgiveness as the tofu of the soul, healthful alternative to the red meat of anger and vengeance. Ornish says, "When I talk about forgiveness, I mean letting go, not excusing the other person or reconciling them or condoning behavior, just letting go of your own suffering. In a way, the most selfish thing you can do for yourself is to forgive other people." It is still astounding to me that there are people who seriously ask the question, why forgive? I suppose you may also ask, why love? The deepest hurt in your life usually comes from those you love the most. It is easy to understand why you would give up on love, since you have experienced the pain of being hurt when you are loving someone. When somebody comes to me and identifies a perpetrator, often they are completely focused on one thing. Make him stop. I want to make him stop. They can only be aware of one solution, that he has to stop oppressing us. They are upset when something in EPT doesn't change the person who is troubling them. Their limited awareness makes them stuck. They give their stories so much energy that they are locked into resistance. And their stories are so emotional and sad. When I am treating a person in this situation and I find myself stuck, I know I have stepped into the place of the client. And I am also trying to look for that one solution for the problem. I am so tuned into the client, I go right where they are. The problem is not the other person's behavior. Awareness is the problem. Opening awareness allows a multitude of possible solutions. Suffering is the part of the human condition that we resist. We see no options or solutions besides making someone else change. Our awareness is stuck. If we can move out of our own stories and identify with all of the suffering in the world, we can extend love to people who perpetrated against us. Forgiveness is the way to move that stuck energy and unlock the resistance. Loving does not carry a promise that allows you to control the outcomes of your relationships. People can still die, leave you, or hurt you. Without forgiveness, you are left with all the pain, loss, and anger. This negative energy takes up space that you could use to create more of what you really love and enjoy in life. Why forgive? When you forgive, you let go of all the pain, anger, sadness, and loss from your past that you still hold space for in your life. Forgiveness is a get out of jail free card, and you are the prisoner you set free. Forgiveness opens space in your life for miracles to happen. EPT combines insight-inducing energy work and intuition to reach the goal of forgiveness and love. There is no better healing modality than forgiveness and love. Simply put, forgiveness and love make your health better, your relationships better, your family better, and the entire world a better place for everyone. A true life example of the power of forgiveness made national news on October 2006. Jeff Glor reports on the events 7 years later. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. It's been 7 years since Terry Roberts' life changed forever. In October 2006, her 32-year-old son Charlie walked into an Amish school in Lancaster County and shot 10 young girls, killing 5 of them before killing himself. I heard the sirens and heard helicopters, Robert said. My phone was ringing and it was my husband, and he said, "You have to get to Charlie right away." And I looked at my husband with these sunken eyes, just saying, "It was Charlie." "It could not be," she said, shaking her head with her tears in her eyes. "It truly was. It was our son." Robert's initial reaction was that she had to move away. But the Amish came to her the night of the shooting to say they wanted her to stay. Some of the victims' families attended her son's funeral. "There are not words to describe how that made us feel that day," said Roberts. For the mother and father who had lost not just one, but 2 daughters at the hand of our son to come up and be the first ones to greet us. Wow. Is there anything in this life that we should not forgive? Roberts now shares the message with those who have experienced trauma. And every Thursday she cares for the most seriously wounded survivor of the shooting, who is now 13. It's against Amish beliefs to appear on camera. Donald Crahill often speaks on their behalf. I find what Terry does with that little girl an incredibly moving event. It takes me to tears every time I talk about it or think about it, said Crahill. You have this mother who raised a son who did this horrific damage to this young woman, and the mother has the courage and spiritual fortitude to come back and care for this young woman, and the parents of the young woman welcome her into their home. It's a powerful, powerful story. Asked what she would say to the families of the school shooting victims killed in Newton, Connecticut 1 year ago, Roberts said, "There is always hope. To walk into the future knowing each day has something that we can be thankful for, and not to live in the sorrow 24/7. Ask God to provide new things in your lives, new things to focus on," she said. That doesn't take the place of what is lost, but it can give us a hope and a future only made possible by forgiveness. As always, you can subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and go get your free training at eptworks.com. I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the Forgiveness Doctor. Until next time, listen, love, give. EPT Works.